theyeshiva.net.
So we now begin our fourth and Be'ezer Hashem final class on this special Maamar, this great Hasidic discourse, B'yoyim Ashtei Asar, Tavshin Lamed Aleph, Yud Aleph Nisan, the 11th of Nisan, 1971, presented then by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, dedicated to the theme of Hashem's choice of the Jewish people and the Jewish people's choice of Hashem. I want to mention also that Pesach is coming, and we all want that extra dosage of meaning and inspiration and empowerment and perspective for the Seder and for the preparations for Pesach and for Pesach itself, and being with our loved ones and our family and our communities, however you spend the Seder, at home or away from the home. So if you go to our website, theyeshiva.net, and you go to the Pesach section, we have on top Torah, and in Torah you have a section of holidays, and you go to Pesach. There's approximately, I think, 80 items that you can choose from to prepare for Pesach. Many videos, audio, essays. We have them divided in subcategories. The Seder, going through the Seder, Pesach themes, essays on Pesach, short clips, etc. Likutei Sichos, Chassidus on Pesach, and other items that you could see over there on the website, theyeshiva.net. This series has been dedicated by the Pearson family and my friend Rabbi Pearson in honor and tribute, loving memory of their grandfather, Reb David ben Reb Yaakov Yosef Raskin, in tribute to his birthday on 12th Nisan, 95th birthday, and in tribute to his yahrzeit next month, Zayin Iyar. Thank you to Heinish Masay Tzrura B'Tzrar HaChayim. We've already learned, we had 3 classes, Friday, Sunday, and Sunday. Friday, Sunday, and Sunday. And today we are up to the 4th class, and we're holding Seif Yud, which on your source sheets would be page 11 of your source sheets, Seif Yud. It's the 10th chapter of this Maamar. And again, we have it also in English translation if you scroll down, even though page 11 is still the Hebrew, but if you scroll down, you have everything also in English translation, so you can review it that way. And I hope many of you at least will find the time and the mental space to review this Maamar, because it has so much, really endless. There's an infinite light of godliness that comes across here. So let's continue. We're going to continue with chapter 10. Let me begin this class with a little story. It's a story about somebody known as the Beis Halevi, the Brisker Rav, the rabbi of Brisk. First he was the rabbi of Slutsk and later of Brisk, Lithuania. His name was Hagon Rabbi Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik. He was the father of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Reb Chaim Brisker, known as the Beis Halevi. His work is called Beis Halevi. Of course, he was a Levi, Rabbi Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik. He was a Rosh Hashiva in Volozhin, and then later in his life, he was the Rav of Brisk. And they tell a story that he would learn many hours of the day. And there was somebody once who asked him if he can take off some time in order to take care of some other stuff and engage in other stuff. He would learn like 17 or 18 hours a day. And he said that he can't. They said, why not? It's important things. And he said, let me explain to you how it works. I learn 18 hours a day. There's another Jew who learns an hour a day because he's busy, he has to work, he has to support his family. There's another Jew who learns 5 minutes a day. He doesn't have any more time. There's another Jew, the Gemara speaks in Menachos about the Jew who just says Kriya Shema in the morning and in the evening, and that's his whole Torah. And that's all he can do because he's really occupied completely and maybe doesn't have the headspace or even the ability to learn anymore. Then there's a Jew, he says, who doesn't even learn at all, but Shabbos, he comes to shul. And then there's a Jew that even Shabbos, he doesn't come to shul. But Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur maybe, he comes to shul. And then he says there's a Jew in Paris who maybe never comes to shul, but he still feels Jewish and is connected to the Jewish people. And the Brisker Rav said, and if I learn a little less than 18 hours a day, then the Jew who's learning an hour is going to learn for half an hour. The Jew who's learning for 5 minutes is going to learn for half a minute. The Jew who's learning for a minute is going to learn for 5 seconds. The Jew who comes to shul only on Shabbos is going to come to shul only once in 3 months. And the Jew in Paris is going to be lost to our people. Now, what he of course meant was that things don't happen always in a very concrete way. They begin, it's called in Chassidus, Hishtalshelus, there's an evolution. Distortions don't happen in brute ways. They first happen in very subtle ways. And then it evolves. This is the concept of Hishtalshelus. When we look at an infection, we don't only look at the symptoms, we want to look at the origin. And when you look at the origin, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then it begins always with something very subtle. And we know how true this is in the world of healing. In the world of healing, sometimes what is playing itself out in such a dramatic fashion in a person's life can be traced back to very, very benign and subtle and silent moments in a person's primal space, in the formidable years of a person's life, when it didn't necessarily happen in a dramatic, pompous, loud way. Sometimes yes, but not necessarily. And yet those subtle distortions, after many levels, after it devolves through many stages, it ultimately emerges on the bottom in a very, very different way. This is the concept of Hishtalshelus, and that's why real healing always tries to go back to the source. We don't only deal with the symptoms, we want to go back to the inner source, because when you heal things in the inner source, then everything changes on every level. But that's hard, because we like to target the enemy, head on. But sometimes the enemy is not head on. Sometimes the enemy that I have to target is very, very deep. It's not even conscious. It's not at the surface, and it's very subtle. This is the concept called Hishtalshelus. Hishtalshelus means everything evolves. And the way it evolves is very dramatic. And from stage 1 to stage 1,000, there could be 1,000 levels. 1,000 levels. When I'm eating an apple from the apple tree, that apple came from a tree, which came from a seed, which came from a previous apple, which came from a previous tree, which came from a previous seed, all the way back to the first antecedent, what's called the first Elah, the first Siba, the first antecedent. It can go back thousands and thousands of years. And it's true with time, it's true with space, it's also true with spiritual time and spiritual space. In this Maamar, we're being introduced to this concept in terms of the concept of the struggle with replacing an authentic life with a false life, with a fake life, with connecting to anything but the truth. That distortion can exist on so many different levels. And what the Rebbe is teaching us here is that sometimes it exists in very, very subtle ways, in very benign ways, even in very spiritual ways, even in very noble ways. And that's the pikchus, it's the wisdom, that when the king comes in with his entourage, including the dukes and the generals and the governors, and different subjects say, I'm going to choose as a patron the duke, the military commander, or the governor, the duchsin, the ifrichin, or the istrilutin. And then there's the pikeach echad, who says, Anonos of Malka. I'm choosing only the melech, only the king. On a very low level, this Maamar discusses the distortions on 6 different levels. From the lowest space, where God becomes Elikada Lakaya. He's the God of gods. We're gods, but he's the God on top of us. He delegated the company. He delegated the universe. He's not involved. If he wants to mix in, he can mix in. Yeah, he gave everybody their power, but he does his own thing. And therefore, there's real power happening outside of Hashem himself. That's the lowest level. Elikada Lakaya, the Gemara Menach, is the God of gods. There's a blockage that is more benign. Of course, Hashem runs the world, but there's many employees who have a say. There's waiters, there are managers, there's middle management, there's higher management, there's lower management, and they're all there. They have choices. They get to decide. And therefore, I should be affected by them. I should try to please them. If I'm nice to my waiter and I tip him, I'm going to get the wine faster. I'm going to get the steak faster. I'm going to get the chicken lo mein or the steamed vegetables or tofu and sprouts much faster. Although I don't know if you have to go to a restaurant for that. You just have to go to the Baron's Garden for that. Right? So that's another distortion. In other words, God runs the world, but there's a lot of intermediaries, and each of them has personality, and they assume significance. And the Chacham, the Pikeach says, Ananas of Malka. Then there's yet a third level. And what is the third level? The third level is we go yet to a deeper space. And the deeper space is where there is the blockage where what I'm interested more is the thing and not the relationship. I want the beef, not the relationship. I want the hashpah, not the king. And that's the reason why Jews, during the first Beis HaMikdash especially, and throughout history, there was this saturation with idolatry, which is very strange for us. But the concept is completely applicable till today. And that is, I like to go to a place from where I can get my fixes, my highs, my fulfillment, my satisfaction, fast, easy, and for free. And I also want the excessive rush of energy, which is what klipa, what the shells, what the husks offer, where a relationship with the king requires pikchus, because what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the relationship, I'm looking for the connection, and therefore I go to Kedusha. I want the melech, I want the king, not the hashpah. Even though that means that the flow is something I need to earn, so it's going to be more restricted, it's going to be more filtered, even though it means I have to pay a price, but that's what I'm choosing. Which brings us to the fourth level. This decision itself could just come rationally because I recognize bluff from that which is not a bluff. Klipa ultimately is a bluff. I don't want the bluff. But then there's something deeper. And that is Chelki Hashem Amra Nafshi. A Jew says it's not just about the future. One day history will show that all Klipa is a bluff. Even today, I want the presence of the relationship. I don't need your credit card. I don't want your credit card. I want my Father. Chelki Hashem Amra Nafshi. Ananas of Malka. That's what I want. And we learned at length that even though this makes sense rationally, but nonetheless the reason it makes sense rationally is because that's what my soul wants. Because if not, my mind ultimately is going to be defined by the bias of personal self-interest. It's the Chelki Hashem, it's the fact that your soul is a piece of the divine that reshapes your mind to really be able to be open to ultimate truth, to ultimate objectivity. What a powerful idea. Which brought us last night in the class to number 5. And number 5 is, I'm not looking for idolatry, for stars, for galaxies, for forces of nature. I'm not subservient to things that are separate, klippa. We're talking here those who want the servants of the king and the ministers of the king and the prominent ministers of the king around the table, representing the angels, representing the spiritual energies of Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, representing even the spheres of Atzilus, representing even the light which is the channel for infinite divinity, which are all with the king and serve the king and want the king and are connected to the king. Comes the Alter Rebbe and tells us, Mili b'shamayim v'mchaloi chafatzti ba'aretz. I don't want your Elam Haz, I don't want your Elam Haba, I don't want your Gan Eden Elyon, I don't want your Gan Eden Atachten, even though it's yours, even though it's your Gan Eden, it's your Elam Haba, it's yours. Ich will menish das dich allein. In other words, even Giluyim, even those experiences of the divine, which basically are about experiences, in other words, they're ultimately the way the divine energy is filtered to accommodate my sensibilities, to accommodate my spirituality, to suit my spiritual ego. Even this does not satisfy the soul of the Jew. The soul of the Jew, the ultimate calling of the Jew, is the ultimate truth, and the ultimate truth is Ano Nosiv Malka Ich will menish das dich allein. Only you. You. And that's the metaphor of the Baal Shem Tov. That the king allows everybody to enter, But so many of us get stuck in the chambers that surround the king, meaning I'm looking for the king, but I'm looking for the king in a way that pleases my palate. So this one gets stuck in the food chamber and the wine chamber and the whiskey chamber and the music chamber and the art chamber and the literature chamber and the jewelry chamber, because they're so rich, and the more sophisticated I am, the more easier it is to get stuck in everything. And these are getting stuck in good things and beautiful things and holy things. But the ani, the tefillah la'ani chiyatav, he says, no, v'lifnei Hashem yishpech sicha. I want the full truth, only the truth. Ano nasiv malka. I want the etzem itself, the ultimate truth. But that takes a lot, because the Alter Rebbe explains in Likutei Torah that he brings in the Maamar. Gan Eden is a place where you experience Ziv HaShekhinah, the radiance of the Shekhinah. When you experience the radiance of the Shekhinah, you could be present. I don't have to lose myself in Hashem. I could find myself in Hashem. And that's the question. Do I want to find myself in truth, or am I ready to lose myself in truth? So we often feel we want to protect ourselves. We want to find ourselves in truth. But what the Rebbe is telling us here is, Chelki Hashem Amra Nafshi. For a Jew to be content, a Jew will never be fully content if he or she doesn't completely lose themselves in the truth, because that's who you are. My real I is that I have no I outside of Hashem's I. I'm going to say that again. My real I is that I have no I outside of Hashem's I. That's my real I. That's the nikud of the Maamar. But it's not, in other words, if I'm still thinking about my spiritual self-centeredness, I'm not really in touch with my own emes. I'm still busy protecting myself. And here, again, we're talking here about very subtle levels. Gan Eden, Olam Haba, these are not places of ego. These are not places of klippah. These are places of ultimate kedusha. The Ziv HaShekhinah, it's the radiance of the Shekhinah. Why is it, though, that the Jew will not be content with any of this? Why is it? What was the Alter Rebbe? The Alter Rebbe is a voice. The Alter Rebbe is a mouthpiece. You know, there's an expression in the Navi that David HaMelech is Ne'im Zmiros Yisrael, right? His mouth is the mouthpiece of Klal Yisrael. There's a beautiful word from the Sfas Emes. It says in Tehillim, Kufir Aleph, Oida Hashem b'chol levavi, Oida Hashem b'chol levavi, not in Kufir Aleph, we say it, Tefillah l'David Hatei Hashem, Oida Hashem b'chol levavi v'chab d'Shem chel olam. Right? But in Tehillim Kufir Aleph, there's an expression. It's a beautiful word from the Sfas Emes. 1 second. Tehillim Kuf Yud Aleph, I believe. Oida Hashem b'chol levav. I will thank Hashem with all the heart. Well, whose heart? So he says b'chol levav is, I thank Hashem with the whole heart of Klal Yisrael. In other words, I speak on behalf of every Jewish heart. When the Alter Rebbe said, Ich will nicht dein Gan Eden, ich will nicht dein Olam Haba, ich will meine Shas dich allein, the Rebbe is saying he is the mouthpiece of the ultimate truth of Klal Yisrael. It's capturing, it's manifesting, it's embodying the ultimate consciousness of what a Jew is. And that's why it relates to every Jew. Not every Jew is the Balatanya, that's true. Not every Jew is the Alter Rebbe. God gives every soul its shlichus, right? But there's the nekuda of a yid that a real Rebbe expresses. That's what a real Manig Yisrael, a real Rebbe is Ne'im Zmiris Yisrael. What he shares, what he experiences, what he embodies, he's manifesting the true core of the Jew. Obviously, I can be more in touch with myself. I can be less in touch with myself. Depends how many distractions I have. Depends how much static I have. So now we come to the next level. Now the Maamar is going to go yet a step deeper. It's going to go a step deeper. Now, I think it's just important to emphasize, we're living now in a generation where, people often ask, are these ideas really relevant today? People have so many problems and challenges and there's so much stress. But the truth is, not only are these ideas relevant, these ideas, at least the way I see it, are oxygen. And the reason they're oxygen for today's generation is because so many of us cannot continue to live with our old I. You know what I mean? The old paradigms that functioned are not working for so many people. So many people, in terms of their marriages, in terms of the relationships with themselves, in terms of their children's relationship with them, in terms of our anxiety, in terms of our faith, in terms of our identity, in terms of our day-to-day life, living as humans and as Jews, we all feel the need to recreate ourselves. We all are looking for rebirth. This is what I'm seeing everywhere. The old and the young, especially the young, even the old, as the old are a little more stubborn about changing. We're a little more stubborn. The young are not stubborn because they're young. But everybody feels the need for recreation. And here is where it is. What the world is looking for, this is the consciousness of oneness, the consciousness of Mili Bashamayim Vimcha Lechafatzti Baretz. It's 3 words, Anon Nosiv Malka. Anon Nosiv Malka means that wherever I am, in every space, you have access to the full truth. In every space, you have access to the full truth. But don't get stuck in distractions. What are the distractions? They could be very brute and low and stupid, and they can be very deep and brilliant and profound, but they're still not real. It can be very deep, very profound. Sometimes we have masks of religion. We use religion. We have here some therapists sitting with us here in the class. And they could share, I'm sure, much more than I can, how sometimes people come in and their greatest blockage is religion, God. God becomes, God becomes the greatest cover-up. Why? Because we can use everything as a distraction, even Gan Eden, even Olam Haba. Now, this Maamar is going much deeper. You have a person that the whole Gan Eden and Olam Haba is just one big ego thing. The whole Gan Eden and Olam Haba is just about my superiority complex. The whole Gan Eden and Olam Haba is just about me repressing myself because I believe that I'm going to get some eternal spiritual cholent. Sometimes the whole Gan Eden, I once heard from the Bioel Khan, he told me that there was a young man who came to see him and he was growing spiritually. And he told him a very interesting story. He was laughing when he said it. Rabbi Elkan was a very interesting man, but he was very transcendent. He wasn't so grounded. So he was laughing. He loved it. He said there was a bach. He was a brilliant boy, brilliant. He knew how to learn, just an amazing head, just a gewaldige mind. And he loved talking about himself. He loved talking about how great he is, and he's smarter than everybody, and he understands everything. And that he feels he could be the next gadol, he could be the next spiritual giant, intellectual genius of the generation. And he told Rabbi Yoel, he said, but one of my teachers told me, you have to stop talking about yourself. I said, why? I want to. He said, because if you want to be a gadol, you have to be an onav. If you want to be a gadol, you have to be an anav. Right? If you want to be a gadol, you have to be humble. So therefore, you better stop talking about yourself. It's not going to work. Rabbi Yoel was saying, the poor kid and his poor teacher. If you want to be a gadol, you have to be an anav. You better stop talking about yourself. Right? When you learn Chassidus, that conversation changes. The conversation, not because we don't have big egos. We have egos, and we have traumas, and we have insecurities. But we try to become a little sensitized to what's trauma and what's normal. Right? What's an anav? What's an anav? An anav means that I don't say anything. Or an anav means that I'm open to Ein Sof. Huh? Yeah. Why do you say it's not relevant? Right, but sometimes I have to acknowledge that I'm having these emotions. Sometimes a person just wants the attention and validation. And that's also part of Avodah. Anon Nosiv Malka over there too. Anon Nosiv Malka over there too. So, very good. I've heard a story that there was once somebody who spoke out against the Rebbe, and later he apologized, and he asked, and he wrote to the Rebbe that I hope that you don't have a kpeda, that you're not harboring resentment towards me. So he says, trust me, I don't have time to harbor resentment towards another Jew. They say from the Kotzker Rebbe that he told his students, I don't want you not to sin because you don't have a Yetzer Hara. I want you not to sin because you shouldn't have time to sin. Yeah, such a beautiful insight. Of course you have a Yetzer Hara, but you shouldn't have time to sit. In other words, do you realize how powerful your life is? Right? So yes, a child sometimes, wallows in a little excrement, and adults too. The difference is, do I enjoy it and that becomes my spirituality, or do I realize, yes, these are stuff I have to deal with, but that's not where that's not where I want to hang out. It's not where I have to hang out. But we're talking here even a real Gan Eden, even a deep, deep Gan Eden. So ultimately, it can become a distraction of the emes. What's the distraction? The distraction is that I need the experience of Ein Sof. I need the experience of it. And that's ultimately means I'm living a little bit in static, a little bit in a distraction place. Because what you really want is Etzem itself, ultimate truth itself. Now the Maamar takes us into this next space. Let's continue. Chapter 10, If Yud. This is a very deep chapter. If you'll open your source sheets, it's page 11 of your source sheets, If Yud. You can get the source sheets on theyeshiva.net or Chabad.org or YouTube or COL. And thank you everybody for streaming. Kannst fragen, ask. Yeah. Yeah, so the Rebbe said that the danger of investing in Dein Gan Eden is, it seems so beautiful, so holy. But he says ultimately, in a very, very subtle way, that is what allows for the evolution, for the hishtalshalos of a person to ultimately lose the point of emes. Why? Because why do I want Gan Eden over Atzmos? Because I'm looking for the ego instead of the truth. Not a bad ego. It's a good ego. I'm looking for my spiritual self-fulfillment instead of the real emes. The real neshama of a Jew is completely one with Atzmos. My real I is not looking for I. My real I is looking for emes. Complete oneness, complete bittul. That's the ultimate Jew. That's the ultimate Jew. When I'm a little distracted, I'm looking for my experience. So ultimately, in Likkutei Torah, it's called legarmei. It's self-centered. The Alter Rebbe calls this narcissism. Now, I know it's not narcissism. It's a helik. Don't compare it with narcissism of certain clients that are sick, self-centered people who make other people's lives miserable. We are not talking about that. We're talking about the legarmei of Likkutei Torah. The legarmei of Likkutei Torah is a different legarmei. But the Rebbe says it's not completely different. It's not completely different. Because ultimately, I want my metzias. Why do I want my metzias? Because what it means is that my metzias is more important than the truth. My spirituality is more important than the truth. So he says, ultimately, after many hishtalshalos, after many levels, can come out the result that even though that I'm receiving something from a place of death, from klippah, from tumah, I'm going to choose that over kedusha because I'm going to get more, and I'm going to get it easier. Furthermore, he added, the reason I can invest in that Dein Gan Eden is because I'm giving significance to something outside of Hashem himself, including Hashem's light, Hashem's spheres, Hashem's Gan Eden, Hashem's Olam Haba. But I'm giving some significance to something that comes from Hashem, but it's outside of Hashem himself. That becomes somehow significant. It assumes an identity together with Hashem. After many levels, that could bring me to the space where in my mind I can give significance to something in the world outside of Hashem. To the point that I could start feeling the need to please, to flatter, to honor, to worship all the waiters in the world, whoever they are, because they have bechira, they have power. And I also believe it comes from Hashem. Dein Gan Eden. But the Dein, this word in the Maamar is one of the sharpest points. Sharpest, I mean intense points. It's the Dein Gan Eden, that can result in Dein. It's Dein Welt. Avodah Zarah is euch Dein. You gave them the power. It's Dein. Now, again, the two Deins are one extreme from another extreme. But that Dein Gan Eden, the Dein Gan Eden, it's your Gan Eden. It's yours. It's here for you. Could ultimately lead me to that space where I'm giving the world that power because you appointed them. You appointed this manager. You appointed the CEO, not me. When a Jew really, really appreciates the emes, mer nitas dich alein, this secures you. This puts you in a place of pure dvekas with emes. And every Jew is connected to this, at least to some level, to some degree. The Herst was tut sich. Wir können weinen von dieser Wort. V'yesh l'hoisev biur, b'ashayches da nonosev malka la'avad emili b'shamayim sheroitze beirin sof. What we're learning here is also we see how the Rebbe looked at a Jew, right? How the Rebbe saw a Jew. What he saw is the Jewish story, the real Jewish story. It's not just a Jew does Torah and mitzvahs. Yeah. It's not just a Jew is holy. It's not just a Jew has a pintel yid. Yeah, all amazing. You see really what they saw in a Jew, what the Rebbe saw in a Jew. What is Hayid? What the Jewish soul is made of. What the Jewish soul is yearning for. What the true mahus of a person is. It shows you who you are, and what's available for you at every moment, and what you have access to. And if you don't take that, if you don't get that access, everything else is insignificant relative to that. And this doesn't take away a Jew from the world, as we will see at the end of the month. It doesn't take a Jew from. On the contrary, it doesn't take you away from relationships. It doesn't turn you into, some people think, oh, this is such high levels, I'm going to become crazy. No. If we're going to become crazy from it, then we're not understanding the Vart. It's not about becoming crazy. It's not about running away. On the contrary, Atzmos is everything and everywhere. You're not running away from anything. That's the point. The point is that in every situation, you're only in tuned with the ultimate flow of absolute oneness. You're in that zone, you're in that flow. And even when things come up in the world that are so distracting and so difficult, I can completely be present, knowing I don't have to run away from anything, because running away means that there are distractions. I want you to understand this because this is very subtle. Whenever you have to run away from something, why do you run away from something? Because there's a distraction. Why is there a distraction? Because I'm not in the space of Anon Nasav Malka. Anon Nasav Malka means there's no distraction. What do you mean? Do you know the difficult emotion that I'm having right now? It's very distracting. It's not. There's meaning here. There's purpose here. You're going to learn something. You're going to grow. Don't give up on it. You don't have to run. You don't have to run from any person. You don't have to run from yourself. That's the hard one. You don't have to run from yourself. You don't have to run from Olam Hazi. You don't have to run from Olam Haba. Don't turn them into distractions. Anon Nasav Malka. When nothing is a distraction because everything is connected to the ultimate truth. Right now, Hashem is here. What does it mean Hashem is here? It means that every point of life is filled with Ein Sof. It is Ein Sof. Anon Nasav Malka. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is significant. You're always in the flow. You're always one. Now, we struggle, we fluctuate, but this is the nekuda that the Maamar is conveying. This is how the Rebbe lived. This is what the Rebbe embodied. This is what we saw, how he lived, how he breathed, how he spoke, how he taught, how he saw people. There was never a distraction of the ultimate truth. Right now, right here, Dveikus and Ein Sof, Anon Nasav Malka, and that the whole world is a manifestation of that Dveikus, and every person is a manifestation of that Dveikus. Now that means every moment something else. Sometimes it means I have to stay here, and sometimes it means I have to leave. Sometimes it means Sur Meira, sometimes it means Hasei Tov. Sometimes it means Yemin Mekareva, sometimes it means Small Doicha. Sometimes it means to do something, sometimes it means not to do something. Sometimes it means to speak, sometimes it means to be silent. Sometimes it means to dance, and sometimes it means to cry. Sometimes it means to embrace, like the 28 seasons in Ecclesiastes and Koheles, right? There's a time for war and a time for peace and a time to speak and a time to be silent and a time to laugh and a time to cry. But I can fluctuate between all those itim because I'm not nos of Malka. I don't get stuck in any season or in any modality or in any particular moment. It's miyadeyim la'es kazois. La'es kazois, this is the moment. Yeah, somebody mentions here the story of Roy Klein. Roy Klein was a commander of an Israeli platoon. And an Arab terrorist, you remember the story? Threw a grenade on his platoon. And I believe his name was Roy Klein. He jumped on the grenade. He screamed, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He jumped on the grenade. He experienced the full impact. He was killed and he saved his whole platoon. I met his wife once. She had a baby afterwards. I think she was pregnant at the time. He was a young man. He was in his 20s. Very, very talented, great personality. They said about him that he's going to be the future Ramatkal. He was a religious kid, a religious young man, a frum young Jew. They had a vision for him. He's going to be the Ramatkal, the chief of staff of the Israeli army. He was an incredible person. And he did it like this. He didn't plan it. He couldn't premeditate it. It was a decision of a millisecond of complete Mesiras Nefesh. Complete Mesiras Nefesh. It was an incredible moment. An incredible moment. Yeah, somebody just mentioned here the story in the chat, so I'm saying it. I remember when it happened. Yud. Now, what does Mesiras Nefesh mean for us? It may mean something very different. Mesiras Nefesh may mean what I do with my eyes, what I do with my ears, what I do with my nose, what I do with my mouth, what I do in this moment when I'm being very, very triggered, how I relate to somebody else, a loved one, a stranger. But going out of any place that keeps me down and doesn't let me allow myself to be who I really am. Who am I really? Anon Nosav Malka. That's it. Reb Shalom de Herst. Anon Nosav Malka. Anon Nosav Malka. That's the avodah Yud Aleph Nisan. Anon Nosav Malka. Dichalein. In the Alter Rebbe's language, it's Dichalein. In the Medrash's language, it's Anon Nosav Malka. Nosav means I'm going to choose, take, choose, acquire. Anon Nosav Malka. I'm going to acquire not the dukes and not the governor, but the Malka. The Kula Meschalf and the Kula Meschalf. V'yesh lo ha'isiv biur yud. V'yesh lo ha'isiv biur ba'shayches. Anon Nosav Malka lo ha'avad mili b'shamayim sheroitze beirin soif. To explain even more the connection of Anon Nosav Malka to the love that the Alter Rebbe spoke about. I want you. I want you. B'hakdim. Let's go one step deeper. She'ikir inyan d'avodas kechavam ha'mazalas u'shechaysh from davar shorakim tzoi le'ikir. Hein b'negei kechavam ha'mazalas. Da emes u'shenam elem tzoi garzen shal yodem nimsheches hashpa va'oivdim kechavam ha'mazalas chaysh from shem ikir. V'hein b'negei ha'shpoyes ha'gashmis ha'nishpoyes al yodem shashpoyes ha'gashmis hibichdei she'ishtamshu b'em l'avodas Hashem va'oivdim kechavam ha'mazalas mechashim es ha'gashmis le'ikir. Shalachein heim roitzim. Bashpa milo mazek b'dech she'yeh lahem ribuy shefa gashmi k'niskel el sivdalet. What's the key mistake? He says, what's the core of all the mistakes? The core of all the mistakes is, we confuse the tool and the objective. We confuse the means and the ends. We have to understand this. If I'm going through a difficult emotion, right? If I'm facing a difficult trauma, what's the difference between two responses. It's always one difference. Do you see your challenge as a means to get you closer to Hashem? Or do you see your challenge as an end in and of itself to tell you that you're a sick person? That's the key difference. Real avodas Hashem means everything is an emtsoi, everything is a tool to reach the emes. And therefore I'm not afraid of anything. It's a tool to reach the emes. It's an emtsoi. An emtsoi means it's a means, it's an instrument. The baby doesn't agree with me, okay? It's a tool to reach the emes. What's kechavim, what's avodah zarah? They don't see that everything is just an emtsoi. It's an axe. It's an axe. What's an axe? An axe doesn't have, you don't give attention to the axe. The axe is just a tool for the chopper. So if I'm going through something in my life, let's say I'm dealing with a difficult emotion, with a difficult experience, it's an axe in the hand of Hashem, meaning it's there to be able to achieve something. It's not an independent God, Elokad Elokaya. The Kechavim Amazalis, the Avodah Zarah, was the mistake that they decided that the world itself is everything. They didn't see it as a conduit, as a channel. And therefore, they start worshiping it. They worship the stars, they worship the sun, they worship the moon, they worship their job, whatever you worship. The same is true about the physical flows and blessings of life. All of it is a tool for a relationship. It's all a tool for oneness. But those who worship Kechavim Mazalis, again, the physicality becomes not a tool, it becomes an end in and of itself. And that's why they didn't want to go to Kedusha, they wanted to go to Klippa, because they wanted more physicality. Why? Because that itself became the end, instead of it being a tool for true relationships, for true oneness. So the Nekuda of Avodah Zarah is what? The Nekuda of all the mistakes is, I don't know how to distinguish between that which is an instrument, a tool, a conduit, to help me get to where I have to get, and that itself becomes the ultimate story. And when that becomes the ultimate story, that's where I get stuck. So I have a craving to something, right? I have a crazy craving to something. Instead of realizing that the craving is only an alarm clock, it's only an emtsai, it's only a tool to be able to make me aware of who I am and what I need to do and how to get closer to Hashem. What happens? I get consumed. The taiva becomes an avodah zarah. The taiva becomes a god. In other words, I start attributing significance to anything outside of emes, when really everything is einoid malvada. So the Rebbe says, now let's go weiter. V'hinei hagiluyim, gam hagiluyim achinailim, hatachlis uloi behem atzma. Ve'im nakem tzoi shal yodem tushlam hakavana pnim ezedire betachtoinem. ולכן, כשרויץ בהגילויים ולא בעין סוף, היינו שמחשב עושים לעיקר, אפשר ליס נסינס מוקם, שיחשב גם הם צויים, הכיכבים והמזולס והשפע הגשמי לעיקר. Now, all the Giluyim, even the highest revelations of Hashem, their purpose is not they themselves. Hashem himself didn't have to reveal any light and any svidis and any levels. Hashem is free. The reason he revealed everything he revealed, it's not for them themselves. It's that his ultimate purpose should be fulfilled. What was his ultimate purpose? He wanted a relationship with each and every one of us. What's called Dira B'Tachtonim. The Medrash says Hashem created the world because he wanted to have a home in the lowest space of reality. He wanted to live in my heart and your heart. Hashem says, I can live anywhere, I'm infinite, but I want you. Hashem says, Ich will mehr nicht wie dir. I want you. The Alter Rebbe was responding to Hashem. Hashem says, all I want, and all the revelations in the world, all the highest revelations, the tachlis is not that. The tachlis is to fulfill the purpose of Dira B'Tachtonim, to bring Hashem's oneness into every aspect of the world. The physical world, our home, our heart, our brains, our space, our anxiety, our wounds, our traumas, and the whole planet Earth. When a Jew chooses to get stuck in Gan Eden, in Olam Haba, in Giluyim, I'm looking for Oir, I'm looking for light. In other words, I take that which is only an emtsai, it's a tool, and I turn that into the main thing. So the Rebbe says, ultimately, that can cause me to lose focus of what's the emes and what's a tool for the emes. And that's the core of what happened with Avodah Zarah. They took all of the forces of nature, and instead of seeing them as an axe, an instrument in the hand of the Ribbono Shel Olam, they gave it its own significance. And they took the whole Gashmis, and instead of understanding that the whole world is an instrument for dveikus, for oneness, everything. There's a beautiful word from the Mezritcher Magid, Moide de Kevart. We say in the morning, every morning, listen to this word, Mala ha'aretz kinyanecha. By the way, Rabbi Avram Kalisker was a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon. He became a chassid when he heard this word. Listen to the word, Mala ha'aretz kinyanecha. We say it in the morning. What's the pshat Mala ha'aretz kinyanecha? So it means the whole earth is filled with your acquisitions. Right? In other words, you own everything. The Maggid said, Mala ha'aretz kinyanecha, I have to say in Yiddish. The Welt is full mit Sachen, durch welche me ken dir koine sein. The earth is filled with things through which we can be koine Hashem. Nothing in the world can take you away from being koine the Ribbono Shel Olam. Mala ha'aretz, the whole world is filled with kinyanecha. You can acquire God through everything. Rabbi Avram Kalisker heard that? That's the source of healing. That's the source that's the Rebbe. When a Jew suddenly becomes fixed on Giluyim, what's Giluyim? Giluyim means I want my inspiration, I want my revelation, which is amazing. But it becomes a tachlis in and of itself. And it takes me away, realizing the Nekuda is, what does Hashem want right now at this moment, where he wants to live? So what happens? He says, ultimately, this gives room for the terrible mistake of Avodah Zarah, where the instruments become the ikar. Al pi ze yesh loimas, and now let's go one step further. According to this, it comes out as follows: the zeh shel Messiah mehen evdim lechama mehen levana, v'Yisrael ein evdim ela lakadosh baruch hu, ki ashoyrish do Messiah hu bechitzayni yisaratzen, sheroitze be'ezeh davar b'shvil inyan acher. V'abchine de chitzayni yisaratzen k'may shema kolum Messiah mi ba'ofen she'ein nirgish b'sharatzenu b'shvil inyan acher, ela shezeh gufa hu atachlis, v'lechein mistayef mizeh shel Messiah machashu mesama mitzayim de kechavim mazalis le'ikeh. V'ashayrish di Yisrael hu mepnimi yisaratzen, shemitzat pnimi yisaratzen einis sinas makam le'ezeh inyan acher, v'lechein yesh li Yisrael ha'akarash ha'kechavim ha'mazalis emrakem tzoi, kegarzin b'yad ha'choytzet, v'chein ha'shef ha'gashmi u'rak b'shvil avodas Hashem, v'lechein einen ovden ela lekadosh baruch hu ananas of malka. Whoa, for this you could say a shachiyano. Let me tell you what the Rebbe is saying here. This whole Maamar is not about preaching. It's about sensitivity. It's about where you are. What makes the Jew a Jew? It's not we're more talented, we're smarter. Every person is b'tzelem Elokim. It's really where your soul comes from. And if your soul comes from a certain place, that's what you need. And if your soul comes from a different place, you need something else. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe says as follows. Why is it that the nations of the world, they chose the sun, they chose the moon, and the Jewish people chose Hashem? What is it? The answer is as follows. In every person's life, there's something called chitzoni yisaratzen and pnimi yisaratzen. Chitzoni yisaratzen means I want something externally. Pnimi yisaratzen means I want this because this is my ultimate, true, intimate desire. An example. People want to travel. Is that chitzoni yisaratzen or pnimi yisaratzen? A person wants to wake up in the morning and go to work. Is that chitzoni yisaratzen or pnimi? It depends what type of job you have, right? A lot of things that I want, I don't really want that. I want it because I want something else. I go to work every morning because I love my wife, I love my children, I love my husband, I love my family, and I want to be able to feed my children. I want to be able to give them a home. So I go to work. Do I want to go to work? Yeah, it's called chitzoni yisaratzen. It's things that I want, but I want it for something else. Now go even deeper. There are intimate things a person wants. I want this, I want that, but why do you really want it? Is that your ultimate ratzon, or is that ratzon just a layer for another ratzon? And these layers continue. What is chitzoni yisaratzen? What is pnimi yisaratzen? Chitzoni yisaratzen means I want it, but ultimately it's an external layer because it's a layer for something deeper. Now, very few people know what their Pnimiyus HaRatzon is. It's hard to get there because we're distracted by Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. I want this, I want that, I want... Really? That's what you want? Person says, I want my child to be like this. I want my husband to be like this. I want my wife to be like this. Why? What do you really, really want? And you'll see, when you go deep down, it's very, very vulnerable. What do you really, really, really want? And at some point, there's no reason anymore. It's just, this is what I want, this is who I am. And when you hit that spot, usually a person starts crying. Because it's beyond all the masks. So yeah, I want this. I want money, I want a nice house. I want to go here, I want to go there. I want to do this, I want my family to be this. What do you really, really want? And very often it boils down, what do I really want? I want to be loved. I want attachment. I want to be connected. I want to feel that I have value. But these are very vulnerable things. We don't jump there, right? We say, I want this because. Because is always Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. Because. And then there's Pnimiyus HaRatzon. Says the Rebbe, by Hashem you also have this. There's Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. Hashem wants the world, yeah. Hashem wants the galaxies, yeah. Hashem wants the planets, yeah. It's all Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. He wants it. But there's a deeper layer. Where does your neshama come from? Some souls come from Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. Some souls come from Pnimiyus HaRatzon. If your soul comes from Chitzoniyus HaRatzon, that's going to be your goal. That's going to be your life. That's going to be your ruchnius. That's going to be your God. Because that's where your soul comes from. The question is where your soul comes from. It's not a lecture. Listen to what this Maamar says. It's the question, are you going to be happy with this or you're not going to be happy with this? If your soul comes from Chitzoniyus HaRatzon, Chitzoniyus is going to become your Pnimiyus. If your soul comes from Pnimiyus HaRatzon, Chitzoniyus becomes frustrating. You hear? This is such an edel of art. If your soul comes from Chitzoniyus HaRatzon, that's going to be your Pnimiyus. One's Chitzoniyus is another person's Pnimiyus. Why? Because that's where my soul comes from. If your soul comes from Hashem's Chitzoniyus HaRatzon, Hashem wants a world, Hashem wants planets, Hashem wants a universe, look at the world, it's amazing what He wants, but it's Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. What's Pnimiyus HaRatzon? Did it b'tachtonim. Bereishis, says Rashi, b'shvil HaTorah, b'shvil Yisrael. That's Pnimiyus HaRatzon. It doesn't take away from Chitzoniyus HaRatzon. It's not bad. I want to go on a cruise, and I want to go on a ship, and I want to have money, and I want to have a good job, and I want attention. And when I finish a speech, I want you to applaud. You don't have to. Thank you. I said when I finished, Mendel. Standing ovation. Person wants, but why? Why do I want it? It's usually I want something else. I want something deeper. Pnimiyus HaRatzon. So the Rebbe says as follows. The concept of Ummas Ha'olam, and by the way, when he says Ummas Ha'olam, he's not just talking about a goy. He's talking about inside me, Ummas Ha'olam. He's talking about the Gentile within the Jew. The concept of Ummas Ha'olam means I'm rooted in a place of Chitzoniyus HaRatzon, and therefore I feel this is it. So what's the result? The result is I look at the world, and the Emtsai becomes the Iker. The tool, the instrument, that becomes life. That becomes reality. The Jew will never be content with it because his neshama is Pnimiyus HaRatzon. And in Pnimiyus HaRatzon, there's no room for anything else. You can't run to other stuff. This is what it's about. Everything else is just a tool for Pnimiyus HaRatzon. So the Jew's consciousness feels that everything in the world, the stars and the planets and the forces of nature and all the physicality, it's all a tool. What is it a tool for? It's a tool for the emes. What's the emes? The emes is anonos of Malka. Oh, if this is the case, we now come back to the whole question in the beginning of the Maamar. Hashem chose the Jewish people. The Jewish people chose Hashem. And we ask the question, true choice has to be two things that are similar. I mean, Hashem chose the Jew chose Hashem. The point is, When you say Hashem chose the Jew, what does it mean Hashem chose the Jew? It means as follows. In simple words, it means the Jewish soul is sensitive to God's intimate being. The Jewish soul senses the music. It experiences Hashem's deepest self. It's not my choice. I didn't choose it. That's the Jewish soul. That's what it means Hashem chose the Jew. What's choice? We say choice means there's 2 cups of coffee, and I choose one of the cups of coffee. That's external. Real choice, real bchira, this is what the key you have to understand. Real bchira means something else. Real bchira means something that's rooted in my core essence. In other words, I'm not forced into a relationship with it. It's not programmed inside of me. It's who I am in my deepest place. That's what choice means. It's completely free. This is who I am in my deepest core, in that core that is completely undefined, that ultimate I, this is what I'm connected to. When you say Hashem chose the Jew, you know what it means in simple English? It means that the Jew is somehow rooted in the purest, deepest place of Hashem's existence. So you feel everything. So a neshama feels everything. And when you feel everything, you're not content until you have that. So the Jew will never be satisfied with chitzonius, only with pnimius. Why? Because that's who the soul is. So now he goes to Yud Aleph and he says, Al pi zeyesh levayir. Remember how we got into this whole discussion. This whole discussion he got into in Sivav, that seichel is bias. But with emunah, the seichel opens up. So because the Jewish soul chooses God, because it feels Hashem, therefore the Jewish mind works a certain way, pikeach. And he said the fact that it becomes rational adds something significant. Why? Al pi zeyesh levayir gam hamayla b'zeh b'chiras Yisrael b'kadosh baruch hu. He loyed ak mitzad haratzin dan neshama shel hamayla me'aseichel. Ela gam mitzad haseichel kanal siv zayin. Siv Zayin, I said Vav Zayin, ki zeh sha'asherish di Yisrael hu b'pnimiyas hamakev, pnimiyas haratzin, hu mipnei she'Yisrael hem b'chinas pnimi. Ki yadua de sherish ha'pnimi hu b'pnimiyas hamakev. V'lachein, ikira ili de b'chinas Yisrael b'kadosh baruch hu k'sha'aratzin dan neshama shel hamayla me'aseichel makev, nimshech ha'poel gam ba'aseichel pnimi. Shaydei zadavke nimshech me'etzem ha'neshama pnimiyas hamakev, shel hamayla gam me'haratzin shel hamayla me'aseichel chitzonius hamakev. V'yeshloima dezel gam asher kasav chelki Hashem amra nafshi chelki davka the chelik ubchinas pnimi ki yadua binyan matayv chelkeinu manoim geraleinu mayafiru shasenu va'ilu de b'chinas Yisrael b'kadosh baruch hu k'shab b'chida dan neshama nemshechas b'pnimiyas b'avana v'asaga u'ba'efen sheze payil b'machshava dibura meiser shaydei zehu amshacha de pnimiyas hamakev. So this is a whole sugya. It deserves a few hours, but I'm going to say it very briefly, bring out what the Rebbe says. In every person's life, there's 2 elements. There's what's called makif and pnimi. Makif is your higher energy that is very intense, but it's not internalized in your containers. That's like rotzen. I have a desire. This is my desire. Seichel is that which is integrated in your pnimius. Often in Judaism, we look down at seichel. We say, seichel, philosophy, it's not emunah. The Rebbe says, no. Real emunah comes down in seichel. Why? Because the Jew is rooted in pnimi, in pnimius, in the pnimius of Hashem, pnimius haratzin. Remember, we learned before that klipa gets its energy from makif. Chitzonius hamakev, chitzonius haratzin. The Jew is rooted in pnimius hamakev, pnimius haratzin. And pnimius always comes down in pnimius. So when my emunah, which is super rational, comes down in a pnimius, that's when it brings out the ultimate relationship that is pnimi. Pnimi means who you are in an integrated fashion. The Jew is rooted in the pnimius hamakev, the pnimius of Hashem, because the Jew is a pnimi. Pnimi is all about, it's one with you. It becomes you. It's not superficial. It's not above you. It's inside of you. It's who you really are. And that's what Alter Rebbe wanted with Chabad. What was the issue? The Baal Shem Tov ignited the soul on fire. Every Jew is a chelik l'kamima. He ignited the light of emunah, and it was incredible. It changed the Jewish world. The Alter Rebbe said, now let's take it one step further. Let the emunah become completely integrated in Chachma Bina Das. Why? Because then it's complete oneness. It's complete intimacy. It's not just you're committed to another person. You understand the other person. You know, in a relationship, you could be committed to your spouse and you can understand your spouse. You understand the difference? Commitment is amazing. It's the foundation of everything. But when you understand me, then we become really connected. We get each other because understanding is ultimately what allows the person to be fully integrated with this concept, with this reality. So the Rebbe says, the real choice of the Jew in Hashem is not just Chelki Hashem Amar Nafshi, my soul wants you because my soul feels you, Anon Nasiv Malka, and it's super rational, it's makif. That's Gevaldik. Something even deeper. When that comes into my seichel, when it's fully assimilated into my understanding, Pikeach, that's why the Medrash says Pikeach Echad. And that's why the Maamar said it's not just a Jew has a munah and you have a rotzen to Hashem beyond seichel, even though the hashpah from klip is better. Because you're not looking for yesh, you're looking for Hashem. Emes. Even deeper is when it becomes part of your seichel, your real understanding. Suddenly it becomes normal. It goes into your structure. It becomes part of your structured life. That's the ultimate dira b'tachtoinim. The ultimate dira b'tachtoinim is that infinity goes into finiteness, that the Ur goes into Kalim. When does the Jew's essence come out? When the Ratzon goes into Seichel. When the Makiv goes into Pnimius. Because when the Makiv goes into Pnimius, it touches Pnimius HaMakiv, Pnimius of Atzmos. And that's where the ultimate relationship is. The ultimate relationship doesn't have to deny Seichel. It comes into Seichel. Because it goes into Pnimius. And that's Chelki Hashem Amar Nafshi. There's Asheinu Matov Chelkeinu, Manoyim Geiraleinu, Mayofa Yerushaseinu. Geiraleinu, Geirel is higher than Seichel. Why did you win the Geirel? It's not Seichel. Yerusha is higher than Seichel. It's my genes. Chelkeinu, that's my part. That's my understanding. That's my input. Ashreinu Matov Chelkeinu, Umanoyim Geiraleinu, Umayofa Yerushaseinu. Chelki Hashem Amar Nafshi. My soul says, you're my Chelek. You're not just my Ratzon, my Emunah. You're also my Chelik. You're my Pnimius. You're integrated into my Kalim. Because the great choice of the Jew in Hashem is when the choice is not just super rational, when the choice is integrated in my cerebral brain, in my understanding, in my comprehension, and it affects my thought, my speech, my action. That captures the Pnimius HaMakif, which comes out in Pnimius in a person. In other words, it comes out in Kalim. So when it comes into the Seichel, it becomes integrated, and then, as he says, it goes into thought and words and actions, which means it can inform my emotions and my sensations and my experiences and my midas. It's not just higher than me, transcendence. Transcendence is amazing. It's nuclear energy. That's what the Baal Shem Tov came. He wanted to ignite the nuclear energy of the soul. The Alter Rebbe said yes. But you know what the problem? The problem is when my brain blocks that. So when I get into a mood of emunah, I'm there. The Alter Rebbe said the brain doesn't have to block it. The brain could be open to it. In other words, Atzmos doesn't have to exclude Pnimius. On the contrary, it comes into the Pnimius. And that's the Maila of the Bchira that comes through Seichel. The next paragraph, there's two more paragraphs, Yud Beis and Yud Gimel. The next paragraph, even though I really want to learn it inside, but because of time constraints, I have a flight to LA. So I'm going to say it outside. This Yud Aleph Nisan, Tavshin Lamed Aleph, the Rebbe's birthday, we know the meaning of the Baal Shem Tov, that you say every day the Kapitel Tilim of the year of your birthday. So when you become 13, you start saying Kapitel Yud Dalet because it's the beginning of the 14th year. 1971, the Rebbe's birthday was 69, began the 70th year. So he started Kapitel Ayin. So the whole Maamar he shows in one pasuk in Kapitel Ayin. The whole Maamar. And that's Sif Yud Beis. And he brings here an amazing medrash that at the surface is completely incomprehensible. But with this Maamar we'll understand the medrash. Let me give you the background. The end of Kapitel Samach Tes of Tehillim, and they turned it into a famous Chabad song, is Ki Elokim Yoshiyat Zion v'yivne arei Yehuda v'yeshvu sham v'reishuha v'zera avadav yinchalua v'oyavei shmai yishkenuva. Hashem will save Zion. He will rebuild the cities of Judah. The Jews will dwell there and inherit it, and the children of his servants will acquire the lands of Yehuda, and those who love his name will dwell there. That's the end of Kapitel Samach Tes. What's the beginning of Kapitel Ayin? Lamnatseach leDavid lahasker. A choir master for David to mention him. What does this mean? So the Medrash Tehillim says something incredible. And that is, the Medrash says that there was a king who had flock, and he got upset at the sheep, and he expelled the sheep, and he undid the pen, the corral, the space, the stable where the sheep were, and he got rid of the shepherd. After a while, he had a change of heart. He brought back the sheep. He rebuilt the pen for the sheep, but he ignored the shepherd. So the shepherd said to him, you have the sheep, you built the pen, why don't you remember me? Says the Medrash, David HaMelech, the shepherd, told Hashem, Elokim Yoshiyatzim v'yivna Yehuda v'yeshvu sham v'reishuha v'zera avadav yinchalua v'oyavei shmai yishkenuva. You brought back the sheep, you rebuilt the pen, you rebuilt the corral, you rebuilt the cities, but you forgot about me, I'm the shepherd. That's why Kapitel Ayin is Lamnatseach leDavid lahasker. Could you also remember the shepherd? Asks the Rebbe, I don't understand. Hashem got upset at the sheep. The king got upset. Why? For whatever reason, he got upset at them. So he got rid of them. Now he decides he wants them back. So why doesn't he remember the shepherd? He remembers the sheep. He rebuilds the pen. Why Taka doesn't he remember the shepherd? And David HaMelech has to specially plead and beg. Lamnatseach leDavid lahasker. And you know, many of the Mefarshim, I think that Lahasker doesn't make sense. What does it mean? What does it mean, Lahasker? The Medrash says, David says, remember me. It's a Skaradim. He says, why doesn't Hashem remember him? So he says as follows. The Gemara speaks about 7 shepherds and 8 princes of Klal Yisrael. In Gemara in Sukkah. Shiva Royim and Shmoina Nesichim. What's the difference? A shepherd and a prince, a nesich, to tzaddikim, that they give a flow to the Jewish people with makif, through miracles, through their holiness. And then there are tzaddikim that they're royim, they're shepherds. What's a shepherd? A shepherd feeds the flock with pnimius. When you eat something, it goes into you. So there's 2 types of tzaddikim. There's royim and there's nesichim. There are those who inspire the Jewish people in ur makif. Their inspiration, their energy creates a halo of light, and you look up to them. And it gives something to Klal Yisrael. But then there's a raya. A raya is a shepherd. A shepherd doesn't inspire the sheep. A shepherd feeds the sheep. A shepherd sustains the sheep. A shepherd is all about pnimius. I feed you in a very internalized way. So the Rebbe says like this. Hashem wanted the sheep. Hashem wanted the pen. He also wants David HaMelech. But the Ratzon, desire, can be, I have a desire for you. But our desire doesn't make that we should really be one, because it's not integrated. I like you, I'm connected to you, it could still be a relationship of makif. I inspire you, I give you things, but it doesn't become who you are. The relationship is powerful, but it's not you. And that's the difference between emunah and Chabad, seichel. Emunah means my soul is connected to the source with a super rational passion. But when I come back to myself, I'm not necessarily connected. And that's what Alter Rebbe was worried with Chassidus, that when the big tzaddikim won't be here anymore, the inspiration won't be here. Because you watch Rabbi Yitzchak of Baditchev, you watch the Rebbe Reb Melech, you watch the Rebbe Reb Zusha, you watch the other great tzaddikim, the Heilige Rebbe from Lublin, it's gewaldig. But then when you go home, what are you left with? You're left with the emunah, and then when they're not here anymore. So the Alter Rebbe wanted it should be pnimius, chachma bina das. It should be integrated. In other words, he wants to shepherd. David HaMelech says, Hashem, I don't only want you to want us, I want it should be aroya, it should be bepnimius. Lam natsayech leDavid lahaskir. As long as the pnimius is not here, we're missing everything, because the makif itself is ultimately rooted in chitzonius hamakif, and the pnimi is rooted in pnimius hamakif. That's the vart. In other words, makif, as powerful as it is ultimately rooted in chitzonius. Pnimi is rooted in pnimius, the pnimius of Hashem. So therefore, this goes back to the Maamar of Shlach Tovshin Tesvav, how Seichel can change Midas, because it's rooted in Pnimius HaMakif. The key here is, it's a very big sugi in Chassidus, but the Nekuda is that Makif, even Makif of Kedusha, ultimately is rooted in a place that's more external. The Pnimi is rooted in the ultimate Pnimius. Why? Because the Kavanah of Hashem was a relationship. Dir b'tachtonim. So when something is really pnimiusdik, it's rooted in the ultimate pnimius, because the kavanah was oneness, dveikus, dir b'tachtonim, a relationship. So David HaMelech says, I don't want makif. I want the roya, I want the pnimi. And the ultimate pnimi, he says, is learning. And even though Hashem is going to give the flock everything they need, so what do you mean they don't have a shepherd? So the Rebbe says the ultimate pnimius is Torah. Because Torah is integrated, we learn Torah. And since the Medrash says that the Torah of now is vanity, it's hevel, relative to the Torah of Mashiach, so the real Pnimius is missing. And even though these Psukim, Kelakim, Yeshiyat, are talking about after the Geula, but the main revelation of Geula is Atzmus Ein Sof, that's higher than Hasaga. So you would think it's not Pnimius. So David HaMelech, David Malka Mashiach says to Hashem, no, I want that Atzmus should come into a Pnimius. I want a shepherd. I want that Atzmus, which is higher than comprehension. Emunah, L'mayla Me'aseichel, it should come into a Pnimius. That non-nasiv Malka shouldn't only come from a super rational place. It should be fully integrated with my structured self so that it could permeate all aspects of my brain and ultimately it could permeate all aspects of my heart. That's what David HaMelech is asking for. And now we're going to learn the last chapter, Perek Yud Gimel. We're going to go for another 10 minutes, Perek Yud Gimel, Al Pi Kol Hanal. Al Pi Kol Hanal, based on all of this, Yesh Levayra Keshev HaShaychus the B'chiras Yisrael B'Kadosh Baruch Hu, U'B'chiras HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Yisrael. We now come back to the beginning of the Maamar, that Asher sacrificed his offerings because of the choice of Hashem and the Jewish people. And the Rebbe asked the question that the Medrash seems to contradict itself. First it says that the main praise of Asher and of the Jewish people is that they choose Hashem. And then he says that the reason he offered the offerings is because Hashem chose us. So he says, now we'll understand the connection. The B'chiras HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Yisrael Liyis Lo La'am Zgula. Sheritzoynei HaPnimi DaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Yisrael V'lo Sheim Emtzoi Linyan Acher Hu HaShoyrish V'Anesinas Koyach L'B'chiras Yisrael B'Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kanal Baruch D'Zeshe Yisrael B'Cherim B'Kadosh Baruch Hu Hu Mepnei Shesharshem Hu B'Pnimi Yisaratzim. What does it mean Hashem chose people? Hashem chose the Jewish people. What does it mean he chose the Jewish people? Let's say it in English. It doesn't mean there was a bunch of chocolates and he chose one chocolate. It means something else. It's a metaphor. It's basically saying the Jew represents, the Jew captures, the Jew is basically a mirror and a reflection of the deepest core of Hashem. The deepest desire of Hashem is the Jew. In other words, they're one. Your deepest desire is not something that somebody gives you. It's who you are. It's your primal desire. Who you really are, what you really, really want. Not what you want as a tool, as an intermediary, but what you really want. The neshama of a Jew, it's not like I chose a person. This is you. The Jew is rooted in Hashem's essence. And therefore, the Jews must choose Hashem. You know why? Because it's who they are. Here the choice is, it's not freedom. It's not freedom of choice. It's freedom from choice. You're free of having to choose because you know who you are. As long as you feel you have to choose, it's because I'm confused. I want this, I want this, I want that. Real choice means you discover this is who I am. So what makes me free? What makes me free is that I get to know who I really, really am, and that's it. That once you get to know who you really are, there's only one place you're going. Real choice doesn't mean you have 100 options. That's fake choice. Real choice means you know who you are. And you know if this is who you really, really are, this is what it is. That's it. You don't want anything else. It's freedom. It's freeing yourself up from the confusion that comes when you have to choose between a million things because you don't know who you really are. The moment the Jew experiences the truth, that Hashem says, I am you, and you are me, so that's who the Jew is. So the Jew chooses Hashem, Ananas of Malka. The Jew will not be content with anything else but the truth. You know why? Because he's rooted in that truth. That's who I am. If this is who I am, this is who I am. I'm not anything else. Wow. It says in Tanya that the choice of Hashem was in the guf, in the body. What's pshat? The Rebbe says, even the guf of a Jew feels atzmos. What does it mean Hashem chose the guf? It's not that the soul of a Jew feels God. The guf of a Jew feels God. The physicality of a Jew is sensitive to ultimate truth. And that's why, ultimately, a Jew will never be satisfied with all the gashmis in the world. That's why Jews are crazy sometimes. You can give a Jew planes and ships and boats and islands and endless money, and he's not a happy person. Why not? Because even his guf feels pnimius. His guf feels pnimius anotzim. His guf feels nosiv malka. So the world doesn't speak to him. The world doesn't speak. You give it to another person. You give him a beautiful home and a beautiful farm and a beautiful plane. What else do you want? Life is great. You're good. You could be healthy. You can go to the gym. You can go to the therapist. He doesn't even need a therapist. He's not Jewish. The Jew has everything and he's going to therapy. Therapist says, why are you miserable? I don't know. I don't know. Tell me why I'm miserable. So the Maamar says, I'll tell you why. Because you're rooted in Pnimiyus Haratzen, not in Chitzonius Haratzen. Ana Nosiv Malka. You're rooted in Pnimiyus Haratzen, the Vilst Emes. I can give you planes and boats and heaven and earth. I can give you Gan Eden. It's also not going to help. Your guf knows it. When the Alter Rebbe says the Bechir is in the guf, it means even the Jew's physical body is sensitive to Atzmos. And therefore you feel that all Gashmius is about Hashem. It's about Avodas Hashem. And if I'm not experiencing my physicality as part of God, I'm miserable. Ana Nosiv Malka. That's Pshad. The Bechir is in the guf. The guf feels it. The guf feels the core of everything. The sensitivity that even your physicality is all about godliness. All ובזה דווקא מה שפועל מהיודע ודוסם הוא עיקר הנחס רוח והתענוג לקדוש ברוך הוא. אלא בכדי שיהיה להם הנסינס כוח על זה, על ידי המשכה והגילוי דבחירס הקדוש ברוך הוא בישראל, וגילוי זה נמשך על ידי הקרבונס שהקריב אשר. דנויסף לכוח שבקלחת מישראל מצד שורשי בפנימיוס הרצון, הנה על ידי הקרבונס דאשר נמשך כוח זה בגילוי יויס. This explains, the Medrash says, that Asher, the praise of the Jewish people is that they chose God. And now we know what that means. Choosing God doesn't mean there's two pieces of chocolate and they chose God over the other piece of chocolate. Hashem is not how do you compare Hashem to a pagan deity? The pshat is, we explained, the bechira is that the Jew experiences pnimiyus haratzon. And once you do that, there's no choice. You're free from choice because this is who you are. And that's what real choice means. Real choice means it's coming from my deepest, 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 deepest core after you peel away all external layers. This is who I am. That's the real concept of Bchira in Chassidus. And then the Medrash says that the Karbonis were because God chose us. So the Rebbe says, now we'll understand. The real beauty, the greatness of the Jew is not the gift that you get from Hashem. It's what you do with it. That's the key. Avoida, what you do with it. And this, what we do with it, this creates the biggest pleasure for Hashem. So therefore, the greatness of the Jew is that we choose Hashem. But the reason we choose Hashem, or the power, not the reason, the power for us to choose Hashem is because Hashem chose us. Because Hashem says, Ich will mehr nicht wie dich allein. I want you. I don't have any other distractions. I just want you. I want you. The Alter Rebbe felt that. The Alter Rebbe felt that God doesn't want anything but you. And that's what Yitzias Mitzrayim was, and that's what Matan Torah is, and that's what Yiddishkeit is. I want you. So he says, I don't want anything else. I just want you. It's like a very powerful marriage. Yeah, what do you want? You want a house? You want this? I want you. Everything else, I want a house only because you. So I should be able to have you. I want you. Wherever you are, I'm there. The reason the Jew has this power, this urge, this yearning is because Hashem chose us. Because this is what Hashem feels about the Jew. So the Jew feels this about Hashem. You're rooted in his deepest space. So you're not content outside of his deepest space. I'll say that again. You are rooted in his deepest space. So you're not content outside of his deepest space. This every single Jew has because his or her soul is anchored in the pnimius of Hashem himself. So this is who I am. This is the music that speaks to me. L'chol shirayich ani kinor. I am a harp to your melodies. Which melodies? The melodies of Atzmus Ein Sof. The soul is stirred by the melody of Atzmus Ein Sof. This power, Asher wanted to bring out through his Karbonis. His Karbonis brought out more this power of what a Jew is because Hashem chose him, which empowers the Jew to reciprocate. Ich will manage das dich allein. That's Asher. Comes the Rebbe and says now, that was stage 1 in history. Now is stage 2 in history. V'yesh loymar, da'idei she'amar admor hazak ich will manage das dich allein. ובפרט לאחרי שנספרסם זה הידי הצמח צדק, ניתן הכוח עוד יוסר לכל אחד ואחד מישראל. ובפרט להלכים בקבויסו ובדרכיו. So Asher brought these karbonos to bring out this koyach of the Jew. He says, when the Alter Rebbe said, I want only you, and the Tzemach Tzedek publicized it, this empowers the Jewish people even more. This was an additional strength and energy for our generations to be able to tune into who we really are. Who are you really? Don't reduce yourself to an egotistical creature. Don't reduce yourself even to somebody who wants Gan Eden and Olam Haba. Don't reduce your eye to a filtered eye that can only deal with certain energy. No! Remember who you are. You're completely one with the source of everything. That's who you are. You are infinity. Especially it gives power to all those who follow the footsteps and the pathways of the Alter Rebbe. And here the Rebbe summarizes the Maamar in a way that is very, very practical and in a way very, very basic level, on a very basic level. Even though every person has many different desires, you see, he's now taking the Alter Rebbe and he's bringing it down. I have desires that come completely from my animal soul. This is true. Nonetheless, what's the power? So what's the power here? Ich will menish das dich allein. He says, it's not true. I have many desires, and my animal soul likes this, and wants this, and wants this. Says the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe teaches us and gives us koyach shekol haritzoynes shelo yiyu b'loy leiv alev. That even though I have all these desires, I should be able to be aware that all these desires don't capture my ultimate heart. I want this, I want that, I want that. Yeah, I have a nefesh Bahamas. This is so beautiful about this Maamar. He doesn't say you're the Alter Rebbe. You're not the Alter Rebbe. Hast a große nefesh Bahamas, and you have a lot of desires. But the Alter Rebbe teaches you that all of these desires you should know beloy leiv alev. They don't capture your ultimate heart. That's what beloy leiv alev means. It's not, your whole heart is not there. V'ikir itzayna yil ahashlim kavanas ha'atzmus. Where is your heart? Where is your heart? Where is your real Ratzon? You should be aware that your real Ratzon is to fulfill the objective of Atzmos, to fulfill the purpose of Hashem's essence, to create this world, to create in this world a home for Hashem's essence, even in the lowest space of reality. Just like the Alter Rebbe said, I want only you. What does that mean for us? It means that even though I want many things, including my animal soul, I should be aware that ultimately what's my real Ratzon? My real Ratzon is to fulfill the kavanah of Hashem. My real Ratzon is to be an ambassador of Hashem in this world, to be able to turn myself and into the world a place of ultimate oneness, of ultimate truth. To have complete relationship, complete oneness. And that begins with me, that I am an ambassador. I am a representative. I am an embodiment. We always talk about this idea that I am an ambassador of infinity. I'm an ambassador of love and light and hope and wisdom and authenticity and healing and redemptiveness. What about all the gashmias I want? I like food, I like a nice home, I want a comfortable bed, I want to go on vacation, I want a nice Pesach, I want good matzah, I want good morer, I want good charoises, I even want good karpas. V'gam ritzayne begashmi is, where's the Alter Rebbe? The Alter Rebbe didn't live this way. So v'gam ritzayne begashmi is yeh be'iker, b'chdei lasis es hagashmi keli lelikus. You should know that what you really want in Gashmias is you want it to be a vessel for Dveikus. You're looking for oneness. You want it to become a keli for godliness. And this allows for there to be an excessive flow in Gashmias. Like the Alter Rebbe said, that Eibush to get Eden Gashmias and Eden machen from the Gashmias Ruchnis. The Alter Rebbe said as follows: Hashem gives Jews matter, and Jews transform matter into energy. Hashem gives Jews materialism, and Jews take the material and they transform it into divine energy. This is the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe gives Jews gashmias, and they turn matter into energy. So the Rebbe says the Mizem movement, what do we understand from this? The HaKadosh Baruch Hu Noisem Yisrael Ribui Gashmias, Oisem Yisrael Ribui Ruchnias, Ribui Bekamus, V'Ribui Be'echas. This is how the Rebbe spoke about giving Jews infinite Gashmias. When Hashem gives Jews a tremendous amount of Gashmias, what happens? There's an explosion of a tremendous amount of Ruchnias in the world. The Herst via Rebbe ret. Some people say, nah, it's good, let people not have. The Rebbe says, give Jews all the Gashmias, and you know what you're going to get? You're going to get all the Ruchnias. Because from Gashmias, they make Ruchnias. Give them all the gashmis and you'll get, you know what you're going to get in return? You know how you put something in a machine on one side and it comes out on the other side transformed? You know these factories? The Alter Rebbe says that's a Jew. You give a Jew gashmis and you know what comes out? Ruchnias. So you give him more gashmis, you'll get more ruchnias. Ribui bekamos, ribui be'echas, in quantity and in quality. Because that's a Yid, that's a Jew. By a Jew, there's no separation, there's no dissonance. Anonos Malka. Until the ultimate oneness, the ultimate perfection of Ruchnis. to the point that there's a complete oneness and connection with Hashem. Yisrael, the Jew, Torah, and Hashem are really all one. And all this can be experienced with joy and with gladness of heart. In other words, this whole Maamar shouldn't lead somebody, if it's leading you to a place of despondency, you missed the point. The whole point is simcha v'tuv leivav, understanding who you are. As we are standing in the days preparing to the time of our liberation, and this allows us to actually experience the ultimate liberation, emancipation in actuality. And what's the ultimate real Zman Cheruseinu? The Geula mitzvah shleima idei Mashiach tzedkenu b'kod of mamish, the ultimate, true and complete wholesome redemption through Mashiach b'kod of mamish, speedily in our days. Literally speaking, mamish in a very concrete and tangible way.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.